Okay then, everyone. So I thought I would just do a pretty off-the-cuff response to the Boris Johnson speech, which I guess some of you at any rate, will have seen at 8 o'clock tonight. Well, for someone who postured and pivoted as Churchill, he seems quite Chamberlainian to me. Chamberlain, the man who had piece of paper in his hand, if you remember, a pretty worthless prime minister. And that's exactly what we've got in the form of Boris Johnson, a pretty worthless prime minister. Now, back in March, it was all fine and dandy for Boris to come onto our screens and tell us that he would, we had to take precautions, we had to protect the NHS, stay at home, blah, blah, blah. That was then. We had 3 weeks, if you remember. Hello, by the way, to Minu. Nice to see you on the stream, and George. We had 3 weeks to flatten the curve. Do you remember that? That was back in March. Yeah, March. It's now heading towards October, and we're being told by the mighty Boris that because of the severity of the increase in cases, and we're going to talk about, hi Jeff and William, we're going to talk about those things in a second. Because of the increase in these factors, we basically have to stop visiting our families. We have to stay in our groups of 6. Things like outdoor sport, all these things are pretty much over for the time being. Hello, KS. Thank you for being on the stream, and thanks all of you folks joining from YouTube. Obviously, the days of joining from Periscope are behind, but we move on. Hi, Ozzy, by the way, nice to see you as well. So all of this, all this Boris sort of the tub thumping rhetoric. Sorry, it doesn't cut through anymore, Boris. Your political capital is spent. You are yesterday's man. If your party had any sense, they would get rid of you and replaced you with someone who had some credibility. Because one thing is for sure, the United Kingdom is either going to have to learn to live with coronaviruses like COVID-19, or the UK is going to become unrecognizable as an economic catastrophe. A post-apocalypse. Hi, Andrew. Nice to see you. Now, Tony makes the point that cases are not infections. And of course, Tony, you're right. And back in March, it was all about deaths. Remember Professor Neil Ferguson and his 500,000 deaths? Well, it turned out that was massively, hugely inaccurate. But now the same scientists are back, and the same scientists are telling the government that, again, unless we introduce these greater restrictions, then we could indeed see 50,000 more infections a day, I think, and perhaps 200 deaths per day. That's what we're being told. PW says, only Anne-Marie for Britain will sort out this mess permanently. Well, my best wishes, of course, always with my friend Anne-Marie Waters. So back on topic. So one of the things that is most, AR says, I think Boris is caught between a rock and a hard place. Things will get back out better with the vaccine. Oh, is that the vaccine that has given two people at any rate alleged serious complications? I don't know about you folks, but I will be very suspicious of any vaccine, given that they've had 17 years to come up with the coronavirus vaccine and haven't managed it yet. But somehow they're going to do it in the next year? I don't think so. So the reality is also, by the way, that this whole business about the pubs and restaurants being closed at 10 o'clock at night, that's economic disaster for the hospitality sector. It basically means that restaurants, they will have to basically just have one evening sitting. So one evening sitting means that their takings drops by about 50%. That isn't economically possible to continue. So I feel so sorry for any of folks out there who are in the hospitality trade, any of you folks who maybe work in restaurants or, supply restaurants. that's going to become pretty much impossible. And pubs are equally going to be a problem. Now, again, Tony says Johnson is a fascist aligned with WEF agendas on climate hoax and working from home, etc. Well, he certainly is a very confused individual, and I don't think that he's got any credibility left. So the restaurants are going to suffer tremendously. The other group that's going to also suffer, by the way, is pubs. So pubs are going to be shut by 10. So what's that? Last orders by 9:30, 9 o'clock. This is going to devastate the pub trade as well. And I know some people saying, well, all it means is people will drink more between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. That may or may not be the case. But either which way, it's going to choke the revenue in the pub trade. And that's a bad thing as well. So, this is contrary to what we're being told. This is a major problem. And then KS says, China is not revealing the cure because they want to destroy the world. Well, I believe that China is wholly responsible for COVID-19. So it's important that we do understand that. It started in China. China's the source of COVID. And that's never talked about now. Everyone ignores that, apart from people like me. But we should, I don't blame Boris Johnson for the COVID. I blame Boris Johnson for his response to COVID. But they're not the same thing. The Chinese are pretty clear. But there was one point I wanted to say, and Williams mentioned about the CDC. William, you make a point I wanted to just elaborate on a little bit. A couple of weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, in the United States, folks, the Center for Disease Control published information that said around 6% of US deaths were due solely to COVID-19. Solely to COVID-19. The other 94% affected people with comorbidity, some of which, of course, were very serious. Now, if we took that statistic of 6% and applied it to the United Kingdom total, which is round about just over 40,000, well, 6% of 40,000, it's around 2,400 people. Every death is tragic, but guess what? Death happens. You cannot avoid death. Do you know what I mean? That we're trying to live in this false world where somehow, unless we can eradicate all death, then we just can't go out of our homes. That won't work. We have to get real. And so if you apply, and I don't understand why there'd be any epidemiological reason why the similar percentage would not apply to the UK, then you're talking about 2,500 people died solely of COVID-19. If you take that into the regions where I live, that means we've had about 800 odd deaths in Northern Ireland. So 6% of that is round about 48 people. 48 people dying of COVID doesn't justify all that's happening. It doesn't justify us being told, if you live in Scotland, if you live with me, England will follow, don't visit your family. Do not go and visit your family into their homes. Oh, you can go and meet them outside in their back garden as long as there's no more than 6 of you. But, none of this justifies it. The facts don't justify, unfortunately, the response from government. So I'm sorry, Boris Johnson. I watched you. I paid close attention to you. I don't believe a word that you said. I don't know that you even believed it. I think that what you're trying to do is dig yourself into a deeper hole. All this folksy, look, folks, Britain can get through it. This can be our finest hour. No, it can't. You're hiding behind a mask. You're hiding behind a mask. You're huddled indoors. You're afraid to let business go about its normal functions. This is not Churchillian. Listen, during World War II, when the Nazis were bombing us, business carried on. And also, by the way, so one of the things that, so I see some people are saying, James says civil unrest is fully justified. Well, of course, I would hope that there is no civil unrest, but I fear that it is perhaps inevitable if you try to box up the United Kingdom and force people away from their families. Then I think it may be very reasonable that people decide, no, we're not going to put up with this. So, I think Boris's little routine tonight didn't have the impact of what it had back in March. I think there will be many people around the UK tonight, not just me, but perhaps many of you folks as well. Many people scratching their heads thinking, no, we just don't buy into this anymore. We're not going to be told by this government what to do anymore. We want to be reasonable and we want to be sensible. I always do. But seriously, at what point can we sort of come to the conclusion that none of this makes sense? It doesn't make sense, for example, to say to the family, to grandparents, they cannot visit their their children or their grandchildren. If those grandparents want to take that risk, they should be allowed to do that. But our government is proposing, for example, £200 fines if you don't wear a mask, £10,000 fines for not following the rule of six. Meanwhile, as a few people have pointed out in the stream here, you've got a situation where we've got hundreds of illegal migrants landing on our southern shores, and they're being escorted not to prison, but to four-star hotels and special accommodation where they will receive no fines for them. No, the people being fined are the law-abiding British people, and that has to be wrong on any reasonable basis. Last month in August, the government were paying people to go out, if you remember, go out to help out. This month they're saying, we'll fine you £10,000 if you go out in numbers. So there's no coherence in the government strategy. To me, it's affected chaos. I do think it's chaos, though. It's chaotical, but I'm not sure that the chaos is accidental. I think the chaos has been deliberate. And ER says public health officials have proven to be tyrants. I think, again, there's a huge element of truth in that one there. The reality is that our health officials, we have to be very circumspect about what they're saying, because again, we're getting all these issues mixed up about, well, all these cases that are being recorded at the moment. Are these active infections, or are these individuals who have got shards of the COVID-19 virus in them, but that it's dead? And namely, these are healthy people. So are we actually saying that healthy people, are we diagnosing healthy people as sick people, when in actual fact, they have no symptoms, they're absolutely fine, and they don't have an active infection, so they can't spread it? Or these are questions, surely, that deserve a form of scrutiny. I think we should scrutinize these things and try and gain better understandings before we get into this draconian, tyrannical world where we're being threatened with the army. Because Boris Johnson has said he will deploy the army to help the police as they go about the business of enforcing the COVID regulations. But at the same time, as many illegal migrants can land on our southern beaches, and there's no army to stop them. In fact, there's a police escort. Hi, Edward. There's a police escort to provide them to their four-star hotels. So you can surely understand my deep concern about that, which is being done in the name of our democracy. This is a very problematical time for us. Hello, Edward, by the way. Nice to see you in the stream. The reality is that the Conservative government, I believe, is going to end very badly. And I'm in a position now where I've come to the conclusion that I really couldn't care less if this Conservative government was booted out of power tomorrow. People may say, well, Labour would be worse. Possibly, but really, would Labour, they may be worse, but they may be as bad. I'm not sure they would be worse. So it's very, very difficult. We need to basically stand up at this particular moment, folks. We shouldn't buy the snake oil being sold by Mr. Johnson. It doesn't wash. It's not coherent. It's not plausible. It is not going to do our country any good. We can't carry on like this. And so it doesn't matter if Boris thumps the table and Boris does his folksy act. And I think it is an act, by the way. I'm not sure, again, that he genuinely can believe all that he says, or if he does, then when he went in for his COVID treatments, he must have had a lobotomy at the same time. Yes, Francis, thank you very much for your warm welcome, and thanks to all of those of you who have been on the stream. I see the numbers have been rising, so that's very good. I just wanted to say to you that the stream returns tomorrow night, and I've got with me a really interesting person, Alison, who runs the Lockdown Skeptics group on Facebook, and she's been to the fore throughout this whole corona situation to enable people to come together who are skeptical about the whole thing. So we've got so much to talk about tomorrow night. So I really hope you'll do me the favor of tune into my stream tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We're going to be talking much more detail about these issues, how they affect you where you live, how they affect all of us, how they're going to affect our economy, our country, all these important issues. We're going to talk about all that tomorrow night, and we'll have plenty of time to cover it. So look, that's it. I'm away to sit down and try and unwind, having endured Boris, so you didn't have to. I'm not even going to get on to, by the way, we did have KS asked me what my page book. So if you want to find me on Facebook, just go to David Vance, and I think you will see me there. Alt News Media says where I am as well. So that's kind of it from me, folks. Thank you for being with me here tonight. I appreciate these are challenging times, and as I am banished from the toxic sewer of Twitter, but you know, nothing stops me, and we keep on going, folks. And with your support, I'll be here, and I'll continue to be here, and we won't be quiet, and we will continue to speak up for the things that we believe are important. So on that note, thanks again, everyone. Make sure you're here tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and we'll have a real lively conversation. See you then. You can also find me in Parler, by the way, as Tony points out. If you do miss me on Twitter, you can find me on Parler at David Vance. So you can find me there. Ozzy, I wasn't able to make the Richie Allen show. I was talking to Richie. I'm hoping to reschedule that, I think, towards the back end of the week. So you'll see me tomorrow night here. I'll be on with Richie with a bit of luck in the next couple of days. And we'll keep on going. In the meantime, be good and don't buy all the snake oil that number 10 Downing Street is trying to sell you. Bye from me.